Good afternoon. So here we go again with another event, another vigil, another demo, another meeting, desperately trying to channel our collective horror about what's been unfolding for almost 9 months now, and trying to scream into the seemingly indifferent void that something's got to change. Something's got to give to help the Palestinians and Israelis find a better option and a different path forward. It's been almost 9 months, my friends. 9 months of horrendous atrocities, killings, maimings, death, and destruction. 9 months of suffering, uncertainty, fear, disposition, displacement. 9 months of trauma, pain, resentment, anger, fury, and questions without answers. 9 months of separation from loved ones, not knowing when or if reunion is ever possible. 9 months of polarization, division, hatred, extremism, and incendiary rhetoric that has worsened a chronically dysfunctional discourse that was horrible to begin with. 9 months of mass slaughter and killings, reckless endangerment, and the decimation of life and a meaningful future for entire generations, especially for young ones. 9 months of political stalemate, bickering, finger-pointing, lack of progress, entrenched narratives, and a terrifying sense of complete paralysis. 9 months of escalating tensions across the Middle East, threatening the entire area with a broader war and conflict that'll bring further death and destruction upon all the peoples of the region, not to mention the Palestinians and Israelis. What began on October 7th, a criminal, murderous terror attack that killed over 1,200 innocent Israelis by a despicable Islamist terrorist organization, was followed by an even more murderous criminal war that killed tens of thousands of innocent Palestinians, including dozens of my family members, led by a fascistic government that launched a war on all of Gaza, not just on Hamas. And let there be no doubt, while the conflict predates October 7th, Hamas ruthlessly and criminally violated a ceasefire and triggered an entirely avoidable war that did not need to happen. Tens of thousands of Palestinians would still be alive if Hamas had kept its fighters at home on October 7th. The support for Hamas and the armed resistance narrative, the celebration of the group, the refusal to acknowledge the humanity of Israeli victims, and the proliferation of maximalist, reductionist positions, hateful rhetoric, and incendiary activism are shameful and undermine the Palestinian people's just and urgent aspirations for self-determination, liberation, and freedom. But let there be no mistake either that we're here thanks in large part due to the nefarious 3D chess game by Netanyahu to allow Hamas's rule to get entrenched in Gaza in an effort to divide the Palestinians, expand the settlements in the West Bank, and prevent the realization of the two-state solution, which remains the only viable path forward. As former Israeli Prime Minister Ehud Barak said, Netanyahu fed the beast, and it backfired horribly. I stand with the Israeli people's efforts to rid themselves of the current government that does not represent their best interests and is continuously risking their lives and future through reckless, dangerous actions that threaten a state of permanent war and conflict. Those who live by the sword may one day die by it. Durable peace and coexistence, which require a just resolution to the Israel and Palestine conflict and the ending of the military occupation, are the only truly sustainable means for achieving lasting safety and security. The opportunities for integration with the Middle East and the Arab world are vast and immense, and would be a net positive for all parties involved. But this requires addressing the conflict and solving the primary hindrances, chief among them the ending of the settlement enterprise and violence against the Palestinian people in the West Bank, and most definitely in Gaza right now. I also call upon the rational voices within the Palestinian, Arab, and Muslim communities to speak up now and challenge the worrying trends that we've been observing since October 7th, We have a responsibility to meaningfully and positively harness the emotions, enthusiasm, energies, and passions of our communities, particularly of young people, to channel them into constructive and positive actions that support the Palestinian cause and don't detract from its urgent and just needs. The horrendous rise in hate, anti-Semitism, and ineffective actions are not only wrong and unethical, but they are detrimental and harmful. There is a historic opportunity to drum up support for the Palestinian liberation through an occupation, settlement-free two-state solution. Calls for the dismantlement of Israel or the armed resistance narrative are ineffective and shun away desperately needed allies, especially within the Jewish and Israeli communities. We must be responsible stewards of this moment and work for a pragmatic, achievable, attainable, and a realistic solution that grants the Palestinian people their rights on their lands that they called home for generations. Dear friends and allies, while there's much to be pessimistic and hopeless about, I have in fact been heartened by numerous rays of hope amidst an unbelievably dark time. The number of allies in multiple communities, especially in the Jewish and Israeli worlds, who are paying attention to this issue and want to see a just and a meaningful resolution is absolutely unprecedented. The human-to-human connections that I have been able to forge with Israelis, including victims of October 7th and their families, and especially hostage families, give me hope that healing and reconciliation are not only possible, but an inevitable necessity to forge a different path forward. I've been on a one-man mission since October 7th to challenge the entrenched narratives and form a different third narrative that's steeped in empathy, compassion, and the ability to hold multiple truths without one canceling out or delegitimizing the other. Additionally and importantly, I've been confronting uncomfortable issues head on, including those that make people challenge their pre-existing perceptions and notions about the conflict and about the justness of their side's claims and narratives. Healing, reconciliation, justice, peace, and coexistence will not be achieved by superficial, surface-level kumbayas, meetings, and conferences. They require confronting injustices, pursuing change from within, and acknowledging that no matter our differences and competing claims, a sense of shared humanity will always unite us. The people of Gaza, my family included, or what remains of them, are experiencing unimaginable horror and suffering as we speak. The lack of basics, daily bombardment that kills and dismembers children and families and women, the extreme heat, the hunger, the hopelessness, the continued displacement, all must stop right now and immediately. The families of Israeli hostages continue to experience tremendous pain and hardships due to their loved ones' continued captivity in Gaza, and a seemingly indifferent government that has not prioritized their release by all means necessary. I despise Hamas and wish for their rule over Gazans to end immediately. But there is no military solution to Hamas or their ideology, even if the group is militarily weakened at a tactical level. Therefore, this war must stop. A permanent cessation of the war is the only way to end the suffering and bring about the release of hostages. An end of the war in Gaza will most likely end the prospect of a war with Hezbollah and would stop the aggression of other groups and Iranian-backed proxies throughout the Middle East. The status quo cannot continue, especially in the West Bank, where settler violence and a worsening military occupation threaten to derail any hope for an end to the conflict. We must support the voices of peace, empathy, and reason in Israel, Palestine, and the entire region, for they are our only hope. Never give up. Work through your sense of discouragement and hopelessness, and know that you are not alone. There is no going back or stopping right now. We move forward and only forward, never backwards. There's much to be done, friends. Let's get to work.